Social shaming is designed to nudge others back into a certain box. It does not feel good, but it is a tactic. It is not the truth. And if you care about your life, it is not the way. And so again, social shaming, those little comments people make. What I have noticed is not only are they very, very concerned about keeping you in a box, but it is often their fear and discomfort. They want to pull you back in, and they are envisioning themselves changing, and their fears are being expressed on you. They're kind of powered by you. Here's the kicker. The show is powered by you. The silver lining, you can defeat it. The show is normal, but not unique. Even the best of humans have limited bandwidths and imaginations. Social media, by its nature, showcases outcomes, photo finishes, and documentable successes. Subsisting on external rewards, even if unintentionally so, is dangerous. When you seek any sort of external validation, you are being led crumb by crumb, like Hansel and Gretel, to a dead-end destination. People who give you validation may not have the capacity to appreciate or applaud your fuzzier, messier journeys. If you fall prey to the need for any sort of thumbs up from the outside, you will derail your greater journey, as it may produce little fodder for show and tell for a very long time. You hold the power to disarm the show and get your intuition in motion to enjoy a fundamentally freer, more purpose-driven future. You can befriend the crickets. It is tough to choose to invest time in building something new without an assured outcome. If you can enjoy the sound of crickets chirping as you pave your path forward, you will do well. Get used to the odd, flat responses you receive when you explain to others that you're working on something for which there is not a current template. And I'm reading this, I don't know if I'm reading this out of line. Hemingway, prolific SOB that he was, left his mark on the world, but he wrote privately to a friend, "It is never in the papers that you wake at first light and start working, nor that you serve your country, nor that all the ambition you have ever had is to work hard." So again, there's no accolades in the newspapers about, well, he's getting up again this morning and he's writing, and he's getting up again this morning and he's writing. You don't get applause for that. You just do it. Free from the need to fit any mold, you will forge a path that welcomes discovery, deep dives, and creativity. Your heart and soul will be sustainably nourished by the process rather than the punctuation marks. You can face the truth. Tap into tools that help you take stock of greater truth in your life. Friends, therapy, journey map exercises, storytelling, and more, all things that I offer in KindEdge.com, are all resources. So I don't offer therapy. I'm not a therapist, but I offer tools that are tiny little bite-sized tools that get you a little bit in motion today, are all resources for embracing your raw truth and feeling less threatened by it. Take stock of your entire life journey from successes and highs to dips and valleys. While 7.9 billion people can be blamed for some tough parts of your life, you are the only common thread in 100% of all your life experiences. You are the only person who really benefits from taking ownership of the truth, good or bad, and mastering skills for moving forward in that truth. If you are an intellectual who hangs out with dummies because you get energized by the ego boost of always being the smartest man in the room, simply recognize this truth. Then challenge yourself to spend more time with people who sharpen your pencil and help you grow in new directions. And try not to learn to lean too hard on the crutch that is your dummy crew, but give yourself grace when, from time to time, you want to hang with them just to have your ego stroked a bit. In contrast, if you tend to overshare that you have a PhD and only seek to be affiliated with like people, perhaps take stock of the reality that your PhD only happened because you rode the coattails of a research partner who dragged your lazy butt through your thesis. Then maybe take a few humble pills and commit to loosening up your social interactions regardless of how it makes you look. And I mentioned there's a link here to the Kind Reframe on kindedge.com and the 360-degree closet clean out that tells about conscious curation of everything in your life. Okay, onward. You can strengthen your muscle for change. If messy, embarrassing change makes you wince and recoil, leaving you clinging to loaded excuses, you are giving power to the show. I had perceived myself to be a master of change as my career was built on change management. But when I looked objectively at my true passions and goals, I realized I was strangely busy but frozen. Something was holding me back, and that something was me. I could create an Excel spreadsheet project planned with dates and action steps well defined, but progress always halted when I dropped my plans to accommodate some chaos around me. Despite decades of addressing this chaos head on, I was blindly supporting a flavor of the show by continuing to catch every vase when it was tossed, preventing it from shattering on the ground. Because I was stuck believing a few things in my life were too precious to break, I only succeeded at chaos containment. I was failing at everything that my intuition wanted for me. So I think you can understand this metaphor here, which is if there's something that I hold too precious and just wouldn't have the heart to let something fall apart, somebody else can cause chaos in my life and trouble and really bad things. And I would drop all of my goals and say, oh, I'll just go handle that. I'll solve that. I'll take care of you for that. Find a solution to that. I'll catch this face. I'll catch that face, because I wouldn't want to have any of these precious faces in my world break. And that was me. That was on me. I had not dealt with the truth of holding certain things too precious and not being willing to just kind of ruthlessly love myself and the gifts that I was meant to give here on earth, and be so ruthless as to just stand back and let somebody else destroy their lives and put some dents in mine too. But I've got a book written about that, to be continued. The ugly truth I saw inside the pain cave, my pain cave, was that strong, organized, proactive, solution-minded me would need to let some of those faces shatter. I previously believed I had gone to the absolute outer limits to overcome hijackers in my life. But I finally admitted I was always afraid to cross a few imaginary lines. And that's where we get KindEdge. Kind is making this process sustainable, but edge is figuring out where that edge is for you. Where is that imaginary line that you're never quite willing to cross, and getting strong enough in your foundation to push past your uncomfortable edge? KindEdge. Nothing could be more precious than my intuition in living out my greater purpose. I got clear that in order to get back into my own skin, the pain I had felt in being boxed in would start to be felt by others around me. I had resisted hurting, disappointing, renegotiating, and redirecting, but I had to go through these perceived failures in the short term to rescue the long-term arc of my life. I zoomed in on exactly where, along my productive path, I would continually reach this precipice and freeze. I realized my muscle for change was weak, too weak to push past a certain point. I had leaned so hard on maintaining an in-control, people-pleasing, all-is-well image to the outside, but also to myself, that I had no strength to confront the tough conversations, negotiations, and choices that would actually move me forward. Big change is against our survival instincts. Our brains avoid big change because with big change comes the risk of losing our safe place within our clan. To build up my muscle for change, I went deep into experimenting daily with the smallest seeming changes. I observed and documented when I eagerly people-pleased and dropped my schedule and priorities to accommodate others. I worked to understand that feeling my gut, my pulse, and my mind, that feeling in my gut and pulse and my mind. Over time, I experimented with disappointing others. I responded with clumsy apologetic responses at first, but as my muscle for change grew, I gained skills for very naturally responding to others in a healthy, boundary-based way. I embraced the risk that with every disappointment or reasonable barter, I may ruffle the feathers of others. I discovered healing aspects of this as when you take the risks, you filter out the weak links and end up with a better curated clan. You have the opportunity to be a servant to billions of people and millions of corporations, and you can be plowed down by myriad social rules, assumptions, and conventions of any type. If you are not continually disappointing someone or pushing back on something, you will be mowed over. A strong muscle for change is ready to face any reaction, casualty, or loss that may come with making changes. Your goal is to become strong enough to shed anything that seeks to mow over your priorities so that only the connections that are accretive will remain. Moving on. You can use safety as assurance versus an albatross. If the show traps you into maintaining a tribal sense of safety, always staying within some sort of lines drawn around some image or pattern we've established, we can defeat it by redefining safety. You've gathered tools in safety from an education, a career, to a circle of people who support you and more. You can start to view these as fallback options that win you the flexibility to take on change. Your degree in psychology does not lock you into being a psychologist, and your law degree does not lock you into practicing law. Perhaps they are reference points. Perhaps they are reference points and safety nets that enable you to become a screenwriter or a special interest group advocate or an innovator. Socially, we may feel locked into given political views or team affiliations. A political writer who has built her career and wealth publishing books promoting leaders on the Republican Party may feel locked into a certain point of view. But if she risks some rejection by publishing points of view on environmental that do not align well with Republicans, she may actually become a highly sought-after cross-party speaker for interviews and public debate on these issues. Divergence is scary because one may lose some tribal pod. But after some painful shedding of weak links, one might become a much more critical and purposeful source of balanced information in that example. So you can be out. You can do this. Be out. If you twist yourself into a pretzel for a college interview, you can plan to remain pretzeled for the next 4 years in order to fit into that college's culture. People-pleasing or chameleoning to achieve a short-term goal is like planting a rose bush in an acidic soil and then laboring over it 24/7 to keep it alive. We'll succeed better overall if we accept that there are always going to be places where roses just won't be happy. If tomatoes are happier here, plant them and move the roses to a better fit pasture. When I write corporate communications content, the mindset is the absolute reverse of this. The goal is to people please ad nauseum in order to avoid stock value dips, sales dips, employee attrition, and more. When a CEO must announce the company is outsourcing a function, she must tell an impossibly happy story for all audiences. Happy shareholders. First and foremost, the street and shareholders must be happy, so we speak to the cost savings and greater margins that the company will achieve through outsourcing. You have to have happy customers. Customers will fear reduced quality of service, so we will give data to convey contracted rapid response rates and the ability to invest these new cost savings into a product innovation. And happy employees. Outsourcing implies layoffs. Employees may begin to jump ship in droves, so the company messages must point to the benefits to employees. For example, there will be gains and efficiencies that enable better investment in developing employees' skills and better career growth for employees based on having outsourced the lesser jobs. So you can see a CEO has to please everyone. Corporate communications strategists, like me, my day job, must pretzel the ugly truth into a happy message for all. We pull out magical words like value and growth that soak into the fabric of each audience with different meanings. This awkward dance is how some people live in their real lives, not just in business. And they pay a price. They neutralize and douse the passions that intrinsically energize them in order to maintain a steady stock value in a bland, blended market. But struggling to maintain a large mass of thin, untested relationships is a lossy investment. Shoehorning your words and works into an unfit culture only leads to painful blisters. To get in flow and move forward, your intuitive passions, to get in flow and move toward your intuitive passions, you must let go of actively managing perceptions. What you lose on the fringe pales in comparison to what you gain on your native path. Recently, a fella I've known loosely over a few decades commented on one of my social media posts. Ooh, I can't remember this. I'll have to see what I wrote here. I've known this guy as a friend of distant relatives. I think I remember this. While I've probably attended 10 or more weddings or gatherings at which he was present. Oh, I remember this. We've had almost no one. Okay, so this is a guy on the internet that I kind of barely know through friends of friends. We had no serious exchanges. He just knew me through friends of friends, through friends of family, whatever. So this guy sees one of my social media posts and comments publicly. I'm going to call him Kevin. By the way, I wrote in the blog his misspelling. I literally used his words, but he misspelled, which is pretty funny. It kind of shows he probably didn't know what he was talking about. But Kevin says, that doesn't ring of a typical Mary Sue stance. Me. It's my point of view. It's my point of view of my point of view. Oh, is my point of view of my point of view incorrect? It is literally a statement of what I think. What part of me is too confused to know what I myself think? The girl part? Other part? Kevin. Not at all a gender thing, more a political stance-based one. Me. Thanks, Kev. Anyone who perceives that they can control others' thoughts should get used to disappointment. So grateful for our freedom. Happy Thanksgiving. So essentially what we're saying is this is an example of the mindset you might need to have with certain people, which is somebody randomly decided, I think because of his political point of view, that if he barely knew me, but knew me, and that we were friends of friends through family, that he was assuming that I would always speak in a certain way politically. And so he posted publicly like, that doesn't sound like Mary Sue's stance, and I am Mary Sue. And I was like, what do you mean that doesn't sound like me? I literally just typed it. Like, that's literally my point of view. And he was kind of insisting publicly, like, that's not you. You can see these pressures, and this will happen with family, this will happen with business, this will happen over these. Yeah, you said that, or you're trying to do that, or you're doing this, or you're starting this new project, but that's not you. And people will do that continually. It's mind-blowing. And this guy was just a dude that I really didn't care about. But imagine if it's a loved one, a family member, an employer, the person that writes your paycheck. Think about that. It's a tough pressure, and that's where you go in the pain cave. We live in a world wherein we are seen by many, and that many has the option to ascribe qualities to us based purely upon our affiliation with one clan. We certainly can choose to remain neutral to all and be a thought leader in nothing. Millions die with that as their legacy. Fruit flies and termites do it every day. When we poke our heads out of the ground, we grow, we build stronger connections, and we begin to express our unique aspects of our being that can help or inspire or bring joy to others. Social shaming is designed to nudge others back into a certain box. It does not feel good, but it is a tactic. It is not the truth. And if you care about your life, it is not the way. And so again, social shaming, those little comments people make. What I have noticed is not only are they very, very concerned about keeping you in a box, but it is often their fear and discomfort. They want to pull you back in, and they are envisioning themselves changing, and their fears are being expressed on you. They're kind of vomiting their fears on you, trying to pull you back. And again, they're afraid to lose someone in their clan to being somebody who is just not in that box. Our days are filled with subtle winks, nods, cringes, any act of approval, and even overt words that assert what we ought to believe. Well, I know you think like me, and so I've heard that so many times. Well, I know you think like me, and so I know you would never blah, blah, blah. Or I know you'll agree with me on this. If we can call out these types of uncomfortable social acts as tactics and become less controlled by them, we get back into our own skin. When we are in our own skin, we enjoy life on offense, delivering more of our own primary goodness to the world, not just secondary copy of other things. As part of my growth work, I have not only sought out people who can handle healthy two-sided debate, but I have also ensured that I don't blindly march forth in untested relationships with people who happen to agree with me on everything. I stress test every relationship, ensuring that I let others speak first on a given belief, and if true, I let them know how much I love knowing their point of view because my point of view differs, and then I expound and I see how they handle it. I watch to see if they are uncomfortable, seeking to understand the details, asking curious, clarifying questions. If that friendship can maintain a healthy blend of shared and differing opinions, I'll keep it. In addition to me being out, I have learned that the value of stress testing relationships. I've learned the value of stress testing relationships so my eyes can see what I may have incorrectly assumed. This helps me curate strong relationships in my inner circles and place any fragile contractual connections on the outer orbiting arrondissements. As you go forth, instead of blending in, think of yourself as a puzzle piece. You've got to make all your unique parts stick out if the right puzzle pieces are going to be able to find you and click. Living out is the antidote to white-knuckling life. Instead of constantly pinging others to mirror and blend, you gain the peaceful aplomb of authenticity. This is another you can. So you can choose raw over packaged goods. Seek out opportunities in your daily life to create something from scratch rather than from a prepackaged software template. Building things in the real world with real materials provides a medium through which your intuition can influence outputs, and your eyes can behold an expression of something that otherwise lay dormant in your mind. That's a long sentence. These are micro steps for building trust in your intuition. Could I have that big conversation with a film producer to pitch my idea? Ugh, I don't trust that my intuition won't lead me to my own humiliation. To build up that trust, start putting smaller ideas into action. I'm amazed at how great it turns out. Hand draw an illustration rather than snagging a digital icon. Read a book and allow your mind to paint the story's setting rather than watching a movie that leaves no details in the watcher's interpretation. Consider cooking without a recipe, with only a North Star in mind, of mimicking the balance of fats and proteins and starches and replacing the known model with your preferred ingredients. I myself am a horrible cook, but I played with ingredients and invented a tasty, chewy, low-carb, allergen-free health bar by replacing dairy and seed fats and nut and dairy proteins with healthier options. The outcome was far better and healthier than any prepackaged health bar on the market. It turned out so well, suddenly I'm experimenting with a pressure cooker, a smoothie maker, and more. I've noticed knowing how things are done is static, but doing and creating is a dynamic, accretive, upward spiraling feedback loop with every try. Get into creating from scratch, playing with raw, imperfect ideas to build your brain's proclivity to trailblaze on bigger things in life.